Okay, welcome to today's lesson on how primary sources can be used when researching and analyzing literature. And to give an example today, we're going to be talking about a book hopefully everybody's read called The Great Gatsby. I am Rachel David, and here's my presentation. So first, we're going to look at how primary sources are possibly helpful in literature. So first we're going to take a look at documents and how documents are important primary sources when analyzing literature. Documents which include letters, newspapers, things of that nature. So the documents give us both an objective and actually a subjective as well view of the historical context of a story. An objective point of view might be seen in a newspaper clipping, whereas a subjective view would be seen in a letter, and a letter could be by the author, or as we're going to see, by a contemporary author, or maybe someone who read the book at the time and what they thought about it and things like that. Documents also give us an idea of what characters would be feeling about an event or feeling during an event, either or. For example, Gatsby was involved in World War I, so we could look at his ideas of, or I'm sorry, Scott Fitzgerald's ideas of World War I and how that would be important to the story. And documents can also help us understand how the literature was received by other people at the time in which it was written. So again, looking at letters, book reviews, things like that. Maps are also helpful, as we'll see, because they help us understand how characters travel and how travel impacts the story. For example, how long do you think it would have taken for Nick and Tom Buchanan to get from West Egg to the Land of Ashes to the apartment in the city, things like that. And it can also help us understand where characters are within the story in regards to other characters. So while they're in the apartment, how far away are they from Daisy? Things like that, and what sort of significance that can have. Paintings and pictures are pretty obviously helpful as well. They help us visualize the setting, the characters, and possibly the interpretation of the story, as we'll see. And they help us understand how that piece of literature presents societal issues by comparison to other kinds of art that present those issues. So, for example, The Great Gatsby might be seen as a commentary on post-World War I, and then we can look at how propaganda and other kinds of art portray World War I as well. So that is how three kinds of primary sources are helpful. So some important vocabulary to go over before we go on. Let's talk about the difference between objective and subjective information. Objective information is something you might see, like we said, in a newspaper clipping or a newspaper article that just gives the straight facts and no opinions tied to it. And subjective information could be seen in, for example, a letter that shows what somebody thought about something. It's subjective to them. It's based on their opinion. Pretty obviously, primary sources are sources that are from the event itself, whereas secondary sources might be a commentary on that source. So if there's a letter from so-and-so to so-and-so, that is the primary source. But then there's another article on what that letter means. That would be a secondary source. So some other words to know. Primary sources help us gain a greater understanding of what's going on in the story. They give us different perspectives, show us the historical point of view, and they're talking about historical fiction texts, or even gives us an idea of the context in which the story was written and in which the story takes place, which are two different things. And all this is good evidence when writing analytical papers. So our first example is we're looking at a letter here written by T.S. Eliot to his writing buddy, Mr. Scott Fitzgerald. And so it's sort of saying that he really liked it. It's very interested and excited him more than any new novel he's seen, English or American, for a number of years. So if you're really interested, you can pause this, take a look at that. And obviously, sort of cheating on the primary source a little bit because it is typed up, but we're not going to see the actual paper with T.S. Eliot's handwriting on it because it was written in 1925, so that document was probably not scanned in order to protect it, but we have the information here. Here is an example of a map. This is a little zoomed in section of the Long Island Sound, which is what this is. So this part here is Long Island, and here would be the city, where within the Great Gatsby, that's where the excuse me, Mr. Buchanan's apartment would be. That's where the Plaza Hotel would be. Excuse me. And these sort of give us an idea of what an egg would be like. So this would be like West Egg, and this would be like East Egg. So you could say, give us an idea of how far the Buchanan's house is from Gatsby's house and Nick's house and things like that. So the maps can help us give us a better idea of that. And here, our last example is of an image. This is of the writer, Scott Fitzgerald, and his wife, Zelda Fitzgerald, who many scholars speculate that Daisy Buchanan was based off of. And some other clues we can get about the Great Gatsby from this image is the clothes they were wearing, the kind of car they were in, what the houses looked like, things like that. And here is a video on how and why we read and how primary sources can be used. There's some examples of that within the video, so if you would like to pause and take a look at that, go right ahead. And that is everything. Primary sources in the Great Gatsby. Thank you.